From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast with John F. Dini. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Hi, and welcome to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. I'm John F. Dini, and my guest today is Jeff Kikel. He is the president of Freedom Day Wealth Management and the creator of the Freedom Day Method and Freedom Day Method for Business. He had 17 years in the financial services industry, and he began Freedom Day in 2015, which led to writing 6 books. I'm impressed. That's 2 more than mine. Founding 7 businesses, building a real estate portfolio. And last year, he sold 2 of his businesses for a 7-figure exit. So he is not only a practitioner, but he's his own client. I hope you did a good job on the exit planning there, Jeff.
Learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. His practice is focused on exit strategy planning for business owners. And he also has a podcast, freedomnationpodcast.com, if you're looking for it. And he's the co-host of the Sense of Things, CENTS, the Sense of Things podcast. And he's got an upcoming book. Will that be your 7th book?
That will be number 7. It's lucky
Wow.
number 7.
Wow. Freedom Day, quit the job you hate, live the life you love. And that'll be out this summer?
That will be out this summer. It is all written. It's now just being edited, and it'll be self-published, but it'll go out probably late June.
Terrific. Jeff, I'm going to start with the same question I start every interview with a first-time guest.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to decide you wanted to work with business owners on their exits?
I think the interesting thing, John, was, this goes back to the founding of my, the firm that I sold my interest in. I remember when my business partner, Eric, and I were sitting there looking at, okay, well, what is it that we do? What is it that makes us different? And both of us, I think when we asked the question of each other when we were founding the firm, was we really loved working with business owner clients. And as a wealth manager, they're not the greatest wealth management clients because most of the time, all their wealth is tied up in their business. Mm-hmm. So, you don't really have a way to make money. And that was really the beginnings of saying, okay, well, how are we going to help them? Because we had seen the end result quite often of working with a business owner client that was in the midst of selling, and we were stepping in to help with the wealth management piece. But we've seen so many that one didn't plan well. They got the biggest check they'd ever seen in their life and then didn't realize that they were going to run out of money too fast. And also saw a lot of them. I mean, I think you make such a wonderful point in your latest book that, it's not always the money. It's they don't really have anything to fill those 50 or 60 hours that they're used to doing. And we just decided we wanted to help them sooner. So we started a practice. We basically broke off a consulting practice that we did, business valuation. We had created the world's most complicated exit planning product that ever existed. Don't ever create a product that involves more than 12 to 14 people, all trying to peck at, getting some kind of work out of the deal. But at least it was expensive. And we
saving grace. Yeah.
But we decided that, that isn't going to work because it was so complicated to sell, but we wanted to continue to work with clients. And one of my kind of superpowers is the ability to create, proprietary strategies on exit for clients and look and see what's out there, what's available, and create some of those strategies to help them exit. So that's where it started. We did that. I was kind of the primary exit planning guy along with my business partner for 8 years. We built our practice to 200 million and decided to sell. And as I was looking at what I was going to do with the rest of my life and how I was going to fill my 50 to 60 hours, I really came to the realization that what I wanted to do was just build another practice that really just focused around exit planning for business owners and hopefully get there, 5 to 10 years ahead of time instead of catching them at the end of the game as much as we did.
Yeah, we are few and far between. I was at an XPX Exit Planning Exchange chapter meeting this morning, and I happened to be last in about 40 people as they were going around doing intros. And you know what it looks like. You've got some wealth managers, you've got some business brokers, some attorneys, some CPAs, and they got all around to me. And I stood up and I said, I'm the oddball in the room. I'm actually an exit planner.
Yeah. I actually do this for a living. You guys just try and you guys try and do it so that you can do other things.
Right. Describe your typical first meeting with a client. Now, and I'll preface it with everybody in this industry knows that, talking to a business owner about exit planning is about as much fun as talking to them about funeral pre-planning or buying life insurance.
Yeah. Except it's even more, I think it's in there with like getting their teeth drilled more.
Yeah. So how do you arrange your first meeting and how does it go?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I use the same type of meeting format that I use for individual clients as well. So and I just actually met with a client this morning and used that same format. I learned a concept through ChFC. And I learned it through the advisor playbook. And Chris talks about, effectively just kind of drawing out on a piece of paper a Venn diagram, two circles intersecting. One side of it is what matters and what we can control is on the other side. And under what matters is the acronym FORM, FORM. So it's family, occupation, recreation, money. And then on the right side is the 3 Ps, philosophy, planning, and process. And so that's how I start off every meeting. I don't care if they're a business owner or an individual, because what I find is I just asking those questions, and it's so off, it throws them off because they're so used to, okay, well, I've got to start talking about money immediately. It really throws them off because I really start to find out a little bit about their motivation. What's their family like? Why did they start this business? And just start having a conversation with them. I call that a fit meeting. So FIT, and it's just, we do that meeting to see if we fit together. And if we don't, we shake hands and say goodbye. If we do decide to do business, then the next thing I do is I take them through the ExitMap, assessment, and we schedule a time to do a debrief. And that's really, I wish I could make it more complicated, but that's really it. Once I started implementing that what matters, what we can control strategy, I will tell you, I've closed more business faster than I ever did before because we're not focusing on the things that don't mean anything to them. I mean, the things that mean something to them, I find out in that family side very quickly, what their belief is with their family. Do they want the kids to take over down the road? Bad idea. Or do they want, a key employee to take over, or do they want to sell to a third party? I find all of that stuff out really not having any kind of an exit planning discussion at the beginning.
That's really excellent. I hear so many different ways of exploring a relationship, but they all come down to the, one mouth, 2 ears.
Yeah.
Just ask the open-ended questions and let them go.
Yep. And you talk about the things they love, they're going to talk about that all day long.
Sure. On the assessment, one of the great things, and when I'm coaching people on the assessment, one of my favorite responses from a client is, or a prospective client, when you say, what are you going to do afterwards? They say, pursue my life's passion. That's an easy one to get them to take off on.
Oh yeah.
What is that and how are you going to pursue it? That could take up the rest of the meeting. What do you consider the most important factor in converting a prospect into a client?
Well, I mean, I've got to we've got to get along. I mean, that's why I have that fit meeting with them to begin with. Life's too short to deal with. For lack of better word, life's too short to deal with jackasses. I have some very simple immutable laws of my business, and one of them is no jackasses. I just don't have to do that anymore. So it's got to be somebody I really enjoy being around, because we're going to spend a lot of time together, and we're also going to we're going to have to really get in deep and learn quite a bit about each other over that next, however long that engagement is. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is, if I don't feel like they're very coachable or that they're willing to open up, that's a big red flag for me. Yeah. Because I've been involved in these engagements, and, the clients all excited and can't wait to get going. And then, I look back at the bad ones, and I would get a little bit of a feel from, like, let's say the employees, because I'm a big one of, if there's going to be some key employees taking over, I like to interview them separately and just kind of get their take on what's going on. And, if I get from them that, oh yeah, he'll change his mind or something like that, that always kind of, it raises my hackles a little bit now. So I am a little bit more cautious if I feel like that person is, they're kind of giving me the front end that, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this. But I'm also kind of getting that feeling that, well, yeah, I know more than you, and I'm not really willing to be coachable.
Yeah. I have a long-time client that I blew up at the other day. He had a very big COVID-related contract, and it took his company, which was doing $1.5 million to $2 million in gross revenue, little family company, very, very profitable, very nice. And it bumped him up into like the $12 to $15 million range. And he handled it. I mean, he did it, the yeoman's job. It was manufacturing. He went to 3 shifts. And then it stopped.
Yeah.
And he went back down to about the level he was before. And he's got a feeler from a publicly traded competitor, and he's going on and on and on about how much they're going to pay him for all the business he did before. And I said, they're not going to pay you a penny for. He said, well, they always use 3 years average. My last 3 years were absolutely saying, it's like, no, they're not going to pay. And finally he said, well, they have to give it some consider. And finally I blew up. I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. You've never sold a company in your life. Take my word for it. Okay.
They are not going to, they know how to read financials and projections, and they're not going to pay you that.
And he said, well, what if the business comes back? I said, they'll probably be happy to give you an earnout. If the business comes back, they'll pay you. Yeah. But right now they're not paying you for if.
Take what you can get and run.
Right. How do you search out new business? Do you have a marketing plan? I know you have the podcast. Is that effective?
I have the podcast. The podcast really doesn't focus on business owners. It focuses a little bit more on individuals and what I call the Freedom Day concepts. The way I generate business is actually, once again, kind of simple. I come from a marketing background, so marketing resonates with me. The primary way that I do this is I basically do a weekly webinar. I created a webinar. It's in the perfect webinar format that Russell Brunson created, the founder of ClickFunnels. And I basically do that same webinar every week. And I do Google advertising and LinkedIn and drive people into that seminar. Once, usually these type of seminars are going to have some kind of back-end sales thing. My back-end sales thing is, all right, if you're interested in taking a look at this, here's the assessment link. Go through the assessment. I'll do you get 1 hour of my time to do a debrief. And, out of that typical month, I'll get anywhere from 10 to 15 people that'll actually go through the assessment. And, out of that, my goal is to get 5 clients a month. Great. And 5 clients a month is about the max that I can handle by myself. And, we just rinse and repeat every week. It's not the most exciting thing, I do it as a live seminar every week. Eventually, after I made the commitment, after 52 weeks, I will then turn it into an evergreen webinar that'll be kind of on demand. So if you go to my site or you find my information, you'll go in there, you'll put your information in, it'll say, hey, there's one coming up on Tuesday, and then it will just run automatically without me being involved at that point. But I made the commitment to spend a year doing that, tweaking it, seeing what works. And then once it's working, I'll have that, and then I'll start to look at other ways.
Great. Wow, that's a terrific idea. We're going to take a break to pay for the podcast. We'll be back in just a couple of seconds, 60 to be exact. And I'll continue this discussion. I've been having a great time. Hello, John F. Dini here, and I'm very excited to announce the publication of the Exit Planning Coach Handbook. Inspiration for the handbook comes from my 25 years of working as a coach to business owners, with 12 of those years dedicated to helping them plan their business transitions. It is a guide for advisors that explains why working with business owners is so dramatically different from working with other executives. It provides insights on how to approach planning conversations with owners more effectively. Plus, it takes you through the steps that will help you develop your relationship as their most trusted advisor. I wrote this book for advisors who want their clients to move on to a second act that's even more rewarding than their first. If you read any of my previous books, you know I don't lecture. It's a conversation between two professionals. If you work with business owners, I strongly encourage you to read the Exit Planning Coach Handbook. I think it will quickly become a go-to in your reference library. It is currently available on Amazon and the Kindle store in paperback and as an audiobook. Welcome back to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. I'm here with Jeff Kikel from Freedom Day Wealth Management. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the 3 Freedom Days here. Freedom Day Method for Business.
Freedom Day everywhere.
Method. Yeah, you got Freedom Day all over the place. And also the host of the Freedom Nation podcast and the Sense of Things podcast. Jeff, let me have contact information and where people can source this now while we're talking about it. Because, there's advisor to advisor, but a lot of people are looking for cooperative relationships.
Absolutely. Easiest way to get a hold of me is through my website. So it's www.freedomdaywealth.com. And there's contact information there. You can also reach me directly via email at jeff@freedomdaymethod.com.
Great. Thank you, sir. We've already talked about you work with people you work with people that are coachable. Beyond that, describe an ideal client for me.
Ideal client, I like to, I'm kind of a little bit weird, I guess, in my approach. I honestly love to work with people in the trades, construction companies. I love people that dig ditches and bend metal for a living. They're some of my favorite clients to work with. They're typically not your typical wealth manager's client. But I've found that once you get through the crusty exterior, they're the most loyal clients I've ever had. They're fun to work with. They make good money. And they don't really show it off to everybody that's out there, and a lot of times we're able to redirect some of that money that they're making and help their families, help them, make that transition and not necessarily worry about what price they get for the business in the end.
Well, since I'm speaking to a fellow Texan, I might modify that a little bit. They don't like to show off the money they make, except for their trucks.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different. Yeah, I mean, you've got the $150,000 King Ranch F1 or F250 or whatever. But yeah.
I had in my first book, 11 Things About Selling Your Business. I tell the story of one of my clients that also from Texas. We were talking about ad backs. And he had $10,000 a year in work shoes, and he did.
Of course, they're all boots, but they're all cowboy boots.
They were all boa constrictor and crocodile and python and
Well,
he
I
did
mean, you know,
he did on occasion wear them to work.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, boa constrictor, you're going out into wetlands. I mean, I can see how
Yeah.
this works. Crocodile, same thing. Yeah.
What is your biggest challenge in exit planning?
The biggest challenge that I find is keeping the client moving through the process. And I will say, you know, I initially, and especially as I was launching my new practice, because I kind of had a weird transition as I was selling my business or my interest in my financial practice. I basically had 6 months that I didn't have anything to do. So I started developing, you know, the what I call the Freedom Day method for business. Adopted some of the methodologies of the Exit Planning Institute, some of the things I had been doing before, you know, learned valuation so that I could kind of build that. And what I found initially was I didn't really have a good process for keeping them going. I'd get them started and then they would all stall out somewhere in the middle. And, you know, then you're trying to keep them going and trying to collect the, the second half of your payment and everything else. And they just didn't want to move forward. So I think for me, the bright idea was, and, you know, it takes me a while to figure some of this stuff out. You know, 3 years later, I realized, you know what, if I'd have just subscribed to the ExitMap, you know, Express, there is a process. So once I plug that one in, now it's, you know, now they know exactly what we're going to be doing. And I have something to keep me on track as we go through the process. So, you know, that's the challenge I've had. Implementing ExitMap Express into my process has helped immensely because, you know, we keep them moving now. And that allows me to work that 5 clients a month, you know, strategy that I have. And, you know, at some point in the future, it's scalable, it's easy to do, my process works. It'll be very simple for me to add other people onto the team if I want to scale, you know, beyond me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the plug. And you know, it's one of the things that we kind of point to in ExitMap being designed by a practitioner rather than a software engineer.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the other side of it too is I could have spent, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars and 6 years trying to build this, and you already paid the money. So
yeah,
I'm willing to pay you to do it.
And the 6 years.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, but it's you know, having those hooks like we build into there, but I've done you know, my other consulting projects too. You know, never leave a meeting without discussing what's happening next and what the client has to do to be ready for what, and if at all possible, put a date on it and a time and get their confirmation before you hang up the phone or get off the video or whatever. Definitely. You know, who's your best referral source besides your marketing efforts? Where do you get business from?
My best referrals, I have really 2 best referral sources. One is I work with a local action coach group. So they're, you know, very well known for helping businesses grow. I pay to be coached by them as well. So, you know, I'm kind of part of the group there, and, you know, I'm the, God knows, only exit planning person involved anywhere, I think, in ExitMap. So I get in Action Coach. So I get a lot from them. My business bankers are also my favorite referral source because they all, you know, they deal with their clients. And I mean, especially smaller regional banks. I mean, that's how a loan officer makes money, is building relationships and being that first source of, hey, you know, let me take you out to, or can you take me out to lunch, which is usually what works. And, you know, I'm thinking of growing my business. What do you think? Or I'm starting to wind down. What do you think I should do? How should I do it? And they usually make a quick introduction to me in those processes.
Yeah, I love working with bankers, and I think they, in general, underutilize those conversations.
Yeah.
I know a woman that worked for a West Texas bank. She was a wealth manager, small community bank, 9 branches. And she got certified in exit planning and started doing ride-alongs with her loan officers. You know, the hi, how are you? Do you need any, you know, can I increase your line of credit meetings? And she's told me in the first 9 months, She increased their AUM by 60%. They financed 2 transactions. They in discussing it with 2 partners, the partners realized that they had completely different ideas of where they were going. And so they split it into 2 companies and financed both companies. And she said the biggest benefit from the loan officer's point of view is they were stunned to learn how many of their clients had another business that they banked elsewhere.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Yeah, and nobody had ever approached them with this approach before. And it's like, oh, well, now you add value. You know?
Yeah. You just ask the questions and they answer. It's odd.
Amazing.
It's odd, but it happens. Yeah. Final question. I always finish up with this one. Lots of people are adding exit planning to their portfolio of services. Certainly, as somebody that works with the Exit Planning Institute, you see the kind of volumes that they're putting through, as the larger organizations, especially the larger financial planning organizations, wake up to what's going on here, to the fact that 51% of, all businesses over 5 employees are owned by people 57 years old or older. What would be your advice to somebody that comes to you, let's say another financial planner, any professional, and says, Jeff, you do this exit planning thing. How do I get started? What should I do first? What would you tell them to do?
I would say find one of the accreditation organizations, whether it's Exit Planning Institute, whether it's, the CXP or CEXP, whatever it is, and, get some training in that. Don't try and wing this. First off, make the investment in your education. And that's always been, if you look at my designations, I literally almost have an extra little flip out on my card with all the designations I have, not because I want to show off, but because I'm constantly learning and trying to educate myself. There's not a ton of books out there on this. You have a few, usually they're written by people that, own one of those institutes or one of those licensing organizations. So, you get what you get in those cases. But, I say invest in education. Once again, I'm going to give you a plug. There is no better value than ExitMap because it gives you a process. You don't have to create anything. Whether or not you continue to do that, it's going to give you something to start with, and then start to get the word out and be just a resource. For me, when I began doing exit strategy planning, I started hanging out where business owners hung out, and I was just a resource to people, helping them. Whatever I had learned, I knew more than anybody else in the room, just because nobody knows anything about exit planning, and certainly business owners don't. So be a resource, whether it's online, whether you're putting information out. I'm a big prolific writer. So I typically, I blog 5 articles a week in most cases. On multiple subjects. I don't just do that because I'm so amazing of a writer, but I use artificial intelligence technology to get a lot of those articles started. And it allows me to move much faster and get information out there. So, be a resource, share your knowledge. Even if you learned it 5 minutes ago, you're going to know it a heck of a lot more if you have to explain it to somebody else. But just start talking about it, because once again, there aren't that many people out there. Yeah, you've got some of these people, the big Merrills and some of the big wirehouses that are, getting CEPAs on their teams so that they can gather some of this. But I don't necessarily know if those people are really truly exit planners, or they're just kind of a wealth manager with a little bit of a exit planning spin on what they do.
The third certification, which I just finished, which is the CBEC.
Okay.
From IEPA in Boston.
Okay.
And John Leonetti is the head of that organization. And John says, there are exit planners and there are exit talkers.
Yeah.
And the exit talkers far outnumber the exit planners.
Yeah. Absolutely. And always will. That's unfortunately the problem. Unfortunately, the issue is you're going to have people that, oh, well, look, I've got a certification. I mean, I look at it in my business and, people are like, oh, I'm a CFP. And I'm like, so you took a test really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the ChFC. You know what? I had to hustle through 9 courses to get through that thing and still have to take a test at the end. So
I don't know if I was miffed or not, but I thought it was pretty funny. Somebody referred, JOHNDINI. I mean, there's not a lot there, right?
Yeah.
You can't get much shorter than that. I guess it could be Sam Og or something, but, and somebody today referred to me as the only guy he knew who had more letters after his name than he had in
his actual name. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, you and I are in the flip out, business card crew, but like I said, it's just, if you don't invest in yourself, you're not going to be able to help your clients. And, I have so many people that I see that have been in the business for years. And you know what? Those designations say something. And if I see somebody that has nothing behind their name, it says you maybe have learned some stuff over the years, but you don't value the fact that you need to be an expert. There's too many ways that you can screw this up for a client and give them bad information and could cost them hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions of dollars. I mean, I remember our biggest case in 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic, our biggest case was a local business that, it was about a $20 million business. We were doing it as a business valuation for, I think, one of the business bankers we worked with. And, we did the valuation and we were sitting there kind of doing a debrief, and I was sitting in on it. And, my partner missed this. Everybody else on the team missed this, but I was sitting there and I said, okay, well, the business, the 2 owners had inherited it from his dad, basically one of the owner's dads. And I said, well, what are you going to do about the estate tax? And they're like, well, our attorney told us we don't pay it. And our CPA said we don't have to pay any income tax. And I said, no, not income tax. What are you going to do about the estate tax? And he died about 7 months ago. You're going to have a big tax bill come up. And they looked at me and I said, yeah, well, we don't believe it. And I said, well, just get on with my estate planning attorney and let's have a conversation. And she dropped the hammer on them and let them know that they were going to have an $11 million tax bill due in 2 months.
Wow.
Yes, that was going to happen, but quickly, because I recognized that, because I had that training, we were able to work with the estate planning attorney using some different rules around how we shifted the credit around and everything else, and got it down to about $1.5 million tax bill that was due, which they easily were able to, with the sale of the business, pay for. And it became, it went out to the family. They were able to give a lot of money out to the family that would have gone to the IRS. So you gotta educate yourself, because if you don't, you could make a big, ugly mistake.
Yeah. No, it's a shame that people, the podcast that I recorded recently with 3 people, that'll be up probably in order just before yours. The whole topic was, what do you do when you have an unqualified advisor on the team and the owner really likes him?
Yeah.
So, but that's for another day. Jeff, it has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Of course, we will put all your information out when we post this up, and we will keep you informed as to what's going on. But I really liked it, and I hope you'll agree to come back soon.
Absolutely, my friend. I'm loving it, and I appreciate everything you do. And thank you for inviting me today.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks.